Is iRacing worth it in 2023? Now, I've done a lot of iRacing over the years, had some amazing races, amazing championships, made some amazing rivals, colleagues, friends, whatever you want to call it. A lot of respect out on track. But I recently returned to iRacing, hadn't done it in a few months, actually, and had some racing with some very old friends from my real-life motorsport series. And I have to say, I learned a lot doing this race about what I don't like in iRacing and what I do like. So is iRacing worth it in 2023? Let's discuss. By the end of this video, hopefully you're going to have a good idea whether iRacing is going to be for you or not. The first thing about iRacing, and I stream, by the way, on this channel, so I stream all sorts of games, real-world stuff, and I get lots of comments saying, oh, the graphics in iRacing, oh, they're not very nice. And I want to caveat this. So I'm running, my PC is now a little bit old, CPU-wise, and iRacing is a CPU-limited game. And you can turn the settings up much higher than I have them. You can have really nice depth of field and sort of blur and everything. I'm not able to do that and stream at the same time. So my settings, yes, are run at quite a low level compared to what you could run on. Now, you will need a beastly PC to do that. But if you run iRacing at maximum settings, I think it looks pretty much as good as something like Gran Turismo 7 on console, which is a very good looking game. So yes, the graphics of the sim itself might not look too great in the footage you're seeing, but I would say they're a little bit better than ACC off the bat. I mean, the way that the shadows are under the cars, I do feel like the cars are actually on the circuit, whereas in games like ACC, even RFAT, sometimes you sort of feel like the cars are floating. So I've never really had that as an issue in iRacing. You always feel like you're actually there. But yeah, they could be improved. And you see the foliage around is not that exciting. There's actually grandstands missing here from Catalonia. The other thing is the UI. Now, this is a more complicated one because, yes, the iRacing UI is very, very, very dated. This stuff hasn't changed in years when you're actually in the game. I want to caveat it in two different ways. Firstly, they have updated the UI outside of the game. So in their menus and everything, that's all nice and new, and that looks quite modern, to be fair. So they've navigated that well. And secondly, the advantage of iRacing being a PC sim is that you can run your own overlays. So you could turn off these overlays and you could run your own overlays and have them basically whatever style you want. Now, I would say that whenever you're running something third party, it's not quite as slick and as smooth as if it's directly integrated into the game itself. So you either have to go with the old school stuff in the game or run your own stuff, and then you're running overlays on top and you can't have it full screen and it's all a little bit weird. But I do agree that the iRacing overlay is a little bit dated. However, I would say it does give me everything I need, by the way. You can see on this screen, I have my gear indicator and most crucially my throttle and my brake right in front of me, actually, where you might think it would be stupid to have it. I have it there because I always want to check, am I not dragging on the brake? Am I on maximum throttle? I sort of go through corners, look at the amount of throttle I'm applying, and when the next corner I might try and push it a little bit further. So I absolutely love that overlay there. ACC, that's in the bottom right. GT is in the bottom. So for iRacing, for me to be able to move that is actually a big plus for me. So yeah, the UI might look dated, but that's a massive, massive bonus. You can see that I'm not really dragging on the brake at any time here, because if I saw it, I would just ease off a little bit. The relative as well is very useful, except it only updates at the end of the lap. So the position that you're in might not be your actual position. When you go around to the end of the lap, you'll see it update. So that could do with a little bit of an update as well. I do like looking at my PC stress, so I can see if we're going to be CPU loaded or if there's a network issue. That's great as well. The dash I could probably do away with. And that's pretty much it. You can get other stuff up as well, but I choose not to, as when I'm watching there's a big crash. So that's the UI system. You see at the top as well, you do get messages as well that sort of come up. So you have in-game chat. That's quite nice. Now you do get, I'm going to class it as a UI, but you do get voice chat in-game. I quite like it. So at that moment there, he was probably swearing at me on the team radio. I quite like the team chat. It does maybe wouldn't work as much on console. You know, in Forza, it just like turns into a stream of abuse. But in iRacing, it moves quite nicely, especially in 24-hour races. That's quite nice. So the UI, I'm actually not too fussed about, to be honest. And the graphics, yeah, they don't look great here, but I'm running them like that for a reason. Now, the things I don't like about iRacing is if you're not really kind of in tune with what the car's doing, it can feel very sort of weird to drive. It can feel very sort of like skittish, for lack of a better word. The force feedback is not as constantly engaging as ACC. So in ACC, the force feedback always has you engaged. Whereas in iRacing, even though I run at very strong force feedback settings and I have 11 Nm direct drive wheel, sometimes you don't have that feedback and you can actually start to lose the back end and stuff. But that also goes into a positive, because I think when you're dialed in, for me, iRacing is the best sim to drive. When you're in a really nicely balanced car, like I am here in the IR, whatever it is, you can really feel the slip angle. You can really start to get on the power early, get the back end around, get that rotation, sort of ease off the power a little bit, then get the traction to bite again. It's a very, very, very engaging simulator. Very engaging. So when you get into it, I absolutely love it. It's just that when you're coming back into it, as I've been doing here, it can be a little bit difficult and you end up sort of sliding around, like, why am I sliding around? You can't initially feel it. The tyre pressures and temperatures are also a little bit more opaque in iRacing than you get in ACC. The other thing about iRacing is population. iRacing is now really, really, really populated. You can get cheap subscriptions. In fact, if you use my affiliate link, I think I'll pin it in a comment. I certainly get some iRacing credits. Thank you if you're using it. But I think you also might get a deal as well. But definitely, if you're thinking about getting it, hit that link below. And while you're there, also subscribe as well. I'd really appreciate it. But the servers are really populated now. Very, very, very popular. And the big races are insanely populated. I'm talking about Nürburgring 24 hours, Daytona 24 hours, Spa, etc. Obviously, it's a big shame that we don't have the Le Mans 24 hours. Although by the time this video comes out, we might have... I can't really say, but it's a shame that we don't have the Le Mans 24 hours. But you do get a lot of really well-populated events and leagues. You also get participation rewards. You essentially get credit back if you participate in the event, which is nice. It sort of rewards people just driving, which I think is awesome. You do have to pay for a lot of stuff. So right now, I've had to pay for the car. I think it's about $15. Sorry, for the track, about $15. And the car, about $13, something like that. So you're already looking close to $30 just to basically enter this race, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. So the monetization model of iRacing is always going to be a little bit crazy. But once you bought the content, you always have the content. And they just keep adding more and more. They're adding a new Cadillac hypercar, which is going to be absolutely insane. But would I recommend iRacing in 2023? I would still recommend it with a cheap subscription. I do kind of feel like they could do with a graphics overhaul. It's a thing that people say off the bat. I don't know if it's the colours that washed out or something. And yes, I'm running it on low settings, but if you run ACC on low settings, it still has that ACC vibe, if that makes sense. If you run GT7 on that 120 FPS mode, not prioritising resolution, you still have that vibe of GT7. There's something quite rough and simulatory about iRacing, especially in a car like this where it really feels like you're in a simulator, doesn't it? So I don't know if there's anything that can be improved on the graphics. I'd love to hear from you, by the way. Any suggestions from you that iRacing could improve, let me know in the comments. But I was in this race and I raced all evening. I just bought the car and I ended up having an awful lot of fun, to be honest, racing with people again that I hadn't raced for quite a long time, going wheel to wheel and actually just straight up really enjoying it. So I am going to recommend trying iRacing, but you have to really understand the monetization model before you go head first into it. So if you can get a cheap early subscription, try it out. There's some free content that you can try, but then you've got to make that decision. Is this going to be a place where I'm going to spend a lot of my time racing? Because if so, then it might make more sense to buy the tracks and the cars. If not, then yeah, it's difficult. I do have a video which I'll put up here, which is a beginner's guide to iRacing and how to avoid the iRacing mistakes when it comes to going through the system. So do go check that out if you're thinking about it. But a return for iRacing for me, sort of reminded of some of the pitfalls, some of the good things. And yeah, hopefully we'll be on iRacing very, very soon.